Chief, get off the radio and put on your helmet.
What?
Brace!
This was the last moment that anyone heard of Marguerite Maida. She was dragged into the ocean by a leviathan, infected with the deadliest disease on the planet. But somehow, she survived. So how did Marguerite Maida survive the Reaper? And more importantly, how did she survive the Kharaa? 10 years before the player ever crash lands on the planet, another ship had already been shot down, the Degassi. Among the survivors was a mercenary named Marguerite Maida. And unlike the other survivors, Marguerite wasn't a scientist or an engineer. She was hired for another reason: protection. From the beginning, Marguerite treated the planet very differently from the rest of the crew. While Paul Torgel focused on building habitats and studying the ecosystem, Marguerite hunted it. She regularly fought predators that came near the base, or predators that provided something necessary to her survival. She constantly faced problems head-on. To Marguerite, the ocean wasn't something to fear. It was something to fight, which meant that when something finally attacked the Degassi base, she was the only one willing to face it. The Degassi crew moved through several base locations during their time on 4546b, eventually building a base 500 meters deep in a biome known as the Grand Reef, with hopes to discover the reason they were shot down in the first place. But the deeper they went, the more dangerous the ocean became. Eventually, one of the most terrifying predators on the planet found them, a Reaper Leviathan. The attack happened suddenly. The Leviathan began smashing into the base, tearing through its hull. Systems failed. The habitat started flooding. Paul Torgel attempted to escape, but Marguerite didn't run. Instead, she fought back. Using a piece of scrap metal as a weapon, Marguerite challenged the Leviathan and stabbed it directly in the eye. The last thing anyone saw was Marguerite Maida clinging to the Reaper Leviathan as it dragged her into the darkness. Most people assume she died, but that's not what happened at all. In Below Zero, we find Marguerite Maida alive and thriving. Dialogue and PDAs in the game explain what happened when Bart lost sight of Marguerite. She didn't let go. As the Leviathan dragged her out into the void, she kept attacking it, until eventually, the creature died to the injuries. Marguerite had just survived an encounter with the most dangerous predator on the planet. But now she had a new problem. Marguerite is miles from the nearest landmass, thousands of meters above the ocean floor, and surrounded by the endless ocean of 4546b. So she did something almost unbelievable. She climbed into the corpse of the Leviathan and waited. Eventually, the body began drifting with the ocean currents. For at least 2 weeks, Marguerite survived in that drifting corpse. She'd cut into the creature's flesh for shelter, burned its fat for heat, and ate its meat to stay alive. Slowly, the ocean currents carried the Reaper's carcass across the void. Eventually, the body reached the frozen waters of Sector Zero. Marguerite had found land. But there was still one major problem. The PDA states that the Kharaa will incubate within 2 weeks and quickly kill the host after this point. The exact time Marguerite spent traveling isn't stated anywhere within the games, but we do know it was a minimum of 2 weeks. So how is Marguerite still alive? The Kharaa is an alien bacterium that spreads rapidly through ecosystems. The infection slowly destroys living organisms from the inside. Even the powerful race known as the Architects couldn't stop it. And yet somehow, Marguerite Maida survived it. At first glance, this shouldn't be possible, but the planet itself may have been quietly fighting the infection long before the player ever arrived. And the key to that theory lies in one small creature, the Peeper. Imprisoned deep beneath the ocean, one of the most important creatures in the entire series, the Sea Emperor Leviathan. This massive organism produces a substance known as enzyme 42, a natural compound capable of curing the Kharaa bacterium. But the Sea Emperor itself is trapped. So instead, the enzyme spreads through the ecosystem in another way. The Architects designed a network of vents. Evenly spread around the map, you will find the exit points to these vents. When you arrive in the Sea Emperor's chamber, you notice something incredibly strange. The Peepers are purposefully traveling through these special vents connected to the primary containment facility. As they pass through the Sea Emperor's chamber, They absorb trace amounts of the enzyme, then they swim back through the vents into the open ocean, spreading small amounts of the cure throughout the ecosystem. So here's the theory. Over long periods of time, this process exposes parts of the food chain to tiny doses of the enzyme. Predators at the top of the food chain, predators like reapers, may have developed a partial resistance to Kharaa. This is evident due to no visibly infected leviathans within the game. And that leads to a very interesting possibility. If leviathans are gaining resistance to the infection by ingesting large amounts of these enzyme-covered peepers, then it would make sense that you could also increase your resistance by ingesting large amounts of said leviathan. Because for weeks, Marguerite was doing exactly this. Marguerite may have survived by eating leviathan meat. Marguerite didn't know about the enzyme, she didn't know about the sea emperor, and she definitely didn't know about the peeper system spreading the cure through the ocean. All she knew was that she needed to survive. And by hunting and eating one of the planet's largest predators, she may have unknowingly caused the disease to progress slowly enough for her to survive until the planet was eventually cured. In other words, Marguerite Maida survived because of a combination of three things: her courage, her determination, and her appetite. Because without realizing it, she chose to eat one of the only things on the planet that could keep her alive. Most people who crash on planet 4546b don't last very long. But Marguerite Maida survived a Leviathan attack, survived drifting across the void, and survived the deadliest disease on the planet. But in the end, the thing that may have saved her life wasn't any sharp weapon, nor fancy base. Marguerite Maida was saved by the peeper.